Welcome in everyone to Flyover Footy. My name is Matt Baker, joined by my friends, plural in soccer, Stuart Holkren, and the man, the myth, the legend, the godfather of Flyover Footy has returned. Phil Grooms is with us this week on Flyover Footy. Welcome in, boys.
Thanks, man. It's been a while.
I was considering teasing out something a little bigger for your epic return on Flyover this year, but I let it kind of just, I think I teased something, but you got to just let it happen organically, like this kind of thing. We're glad to have you back.
Thanks, man. Low expectations that's my bag, baby. So this is great.
I will absolutely mention it in the pod recording because I feel it's a nice little tease, but Phil's back because I'm taking off for a good week or so. I've got a vacation lined up next week where I will be let's just say if I attempted to do a podcast next week while I was gone, I would be in some severe trouble. It's one of those vacations where it's not like I was doing it from a hotel room last time, but Phil will be taking the baton for next week, which is absolutely appropriate given the focus on the US Open Cup next week. So the timing honestly couldn't have worked out better, Phil.
Yeah, I worked it out with your wife, actually. It was like, if you guys go on vacation, there's one window where I'm allowing it.
that explains it. You know, Disney World beckons the year round, but when it comes to Flyover Footy, there's one time a year where it's allowed, and that's US Open Cup week.
Yeah, I was actually curious if you guys do plan your family vacations around breaks or how much goes into that, because there's a little bit that goes into that for me, at least.
Well, I would say the way I handle it is I try to maneuver the conversation a little bit. I definitely don't have the ability with two kids in primary school. I don't have the ability right now to say, okay, we can't go this week because City's got a home game. We can't go that week because they have a home game. But I definitely steer it to, what if we looked at this week instead? We've got a international break here that I'm thinking about in my head, but I don't use as an explanation, right? You kind of,
Dallas is wonderful this time of year, Michelle. Why don't we? Who cares about Disney World? Let's go to Dallas.
Well, not even Dallas. We'd have to go over to Frisco.
Yeah, right.
Even
beauty
worse.
Of Frisco beckons.
The beauty of Frisco. I mean, it's the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame.
That's true. That's a good point, actually.
Which it annoys me to no end. Like, I know why it's there because of the hunts and everything, and the origin of MLS and all that stuff, and money speaks, obviously. But it's just annoying to think of Cooperstown in baseball, Canton, Ohio for football, and Frisco, Texas for soccer. Ugh, kind of gross.
I'm with you.
Well, guys, let's dive right into it because honestly, this episode is entirely St. Louis City, FC Dallas. I have very little news that we're going to start this pod off with, unless you guys have something that I didn't capture. I feel it's been kind of a quiet week.
It has, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I know. I guess Leuven playing tomorrow for City 2 potentially is something
Stuart Holkren, spoiler alert. My God, there might be people who haven't been on the internet today and are just tuning into us.
I don't think anyone who tunes in and watches the live recording of Flyover Footy is not aware of that by now. Or I mean, they probably follow you and Tom Tim on social media. But I won't say any more about that and steal your thunder. But no, it's been pretty quiet, I think.
That's fair. I got so excited that I forgot to go live on Instagram, even though from our perspective in this little studio that we're in, we can see it. We just have not been live on it until now. So I'm glad I caught that before we actually, started talking about it. Let's dive into it, boys. Let's get talking about St. Louis City. Welcome in everyone to Flyover Footy on the big 550 KTRS. My name is Matt Baker, joined by my friend in soccer, Stuart Holkren, and my other friend in soccer. Our first time all the season, I think, for a three-man show. Phil Grooms has joined us this week. Phil, I'm going to turn it over to you real quick. Welcome back, buddy.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad I got the warm up with KTRS, that roundtable we did the other week, and I Boy, I was nervous because I am not quite as up on it as I usually am. And the first thing I could ask you as soon as I could, I was like, how wrong was I? Like, where did I mess up? You said I was okay. I don't think I made any massive mistakes, at least.
That's what we use the radio for. It's to get us warmed up for Flavor Footy.
For the podcast.
For the podcast, yes. No. So, but Stu, welcome in as well. How you doing this week, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. It's I think I saw online that today St. Louis had the most beautiful weather in the country.
Yeah,
Eugene,
accurate.
Oregon, and
Salem, Oregon, and St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah, a few people posting that around. So yeah, a beautiful day in St. Louis. Hopefully everyone wasn't trapped inside all day like I was for most of the day at my office, but
hopefully everybody enjoyed the weather. Hopefully, because this weekend is it's going to be a little rainy, I think. And when you're listening to this on the Big 550, you might be in the middle of a downpour. And we are looking to bring you some rays of sunshine looking at St. Louis City. There hasn't been a whole lot of news this week, though. I feel, and we talked before we started recording, that it's kind of a lull week as far as big non-city related news or non-match day specific news. The big thing that I know happened is the LA 28 ticket draws started to go out. I'm sure if you were part of this, you have checked your email and you're aware of this, but the first round, if you put in for an Olympic draw for the LA 28 Olympic Games, of which soccer will be in St. Louis, the first draws happened this week. The first opportunities to buy tickets went out. Some folks have even had the opportunity already to buy tickets. If not, then you'll get those opportunities here soon if you were selected. But if you didn't get drawn yet and you don't have a friend to piggyback off of, there will be other opportunities to come. Stay tuned to our socials. Stay tuned to the internet at large to let you know when those draws will be and what those opportunities will be. 2028 will bring a host of Olympic soccer to St. Louis. Did either of you guys get in on this? Because I know I definitely didn't. I didn't get chosen.
I did get selected. My window is the 16th. So it opens up in a few days. I see. I've heard other people start a little bit earlier than that. The LA presale, I think, was 2nd through the 6th, and OKC. So
the only local presales that happened, LA and Oklahoma City, of all places. That they're hosting other events, but at the same time, kind of a bummer to not have some local presale just for us and the other soccer hosting cities.
Mm-hmm. So what else is it? I know OKC is doing baseball. What else are they doing? Hosting? Are they doing? I don't know.
We're a soccer podcast too. I don't know. I pay attention to Olympic soccer.
We're now an Olympic baseball podcast. Catch up. Okay.
That's fair. The home of youth baseball and little league baseball at times. So it only makes sense. But guys, with a lack of news this week, it gives us extra time to dive into this matchup, St. Louis City FC Dallas. So if you're okay with it, I think we should just dive right in because I did the notes and Lord knows they are hefty. And we will fill the KTRS portion. And this is your shout out right now. If you like what you hear on KTRS right now, download, subscribe, like our podcast, and tune in for much more because we've got plenty more, I'm sure, in the not the wind down anymore. Phil, I looked straight in your eyes and I almost called it the wind down. We've got our last call coming up at the end. But for now, let's look at St. Louis City SC and FC Dallas. The matchup will be at Toyota Stadium on Saturday, April 11th at 7:30 p.m. The head-to-head history of these teams is a long, well, not so long, but a storied one. St. Louis has a 2-3-2 record against FC Dallas, 2 wins, 3 losses, and 2 draws all time. They're one of the teams we played the most. We played them in Leagues Cup 2024, but I would say most pertinent to the conversation this weekend, guys, we're 0-3-0 away at Toyota Stadium, and we have not scored a goal away to FC Dallas. We have 0 goals scored, 7 goals against. We had a 3-0 loss July 19th, 2025, a 2-0 loss June 15th, 2024, and a 2-0 loss, quote unquote, June 7th, 2023. Yeah. Stu, you want to tell the listeners and the viewers, if they don't remember 2023, why I'm quote unquoting June 7th?
Well, 2023, that game started in May and finished in June. So it started
longest game in city history, 2 months long.
Yeah. And was it a rain delay? There was some reason why.
Yeah, rain and storms in the area.
Yeah, it didn't complete. It didn't go long enough to finish. So it was rescheduled for 4 weeks later on June 8th of that year. And yeah, we were playing very well in the first half when that game got rained out, and then when it restarted, we were just awful. So it was one of those really disappointing games because I think we absolutely would have come away with 3 points if that game would have finished. But
only game that St. Louis has played in our history where we have made 0 subs, to my immediate recollection. I think for City, I think that's true still.
Yeah, there was something weird about yellow cards in that game too. Yellow card suspension where Dallas didn't have some players available, or they. Yeah, I remember talking about it on here. There were some issues with availability that we won't get into. It was just a frustrating game in general.
Well, didn't someone get hurt that started the game and then
that
or
might
was
have been
on the bench or something like that? It felt like Indy Vassilev
you had to use the same rosters when they resumed in June, but there was a nuance or some weirdness. But other than that weird 2023, which we were in form when we started the game, not so much when we finished the game, and obviously that ended how it did. Phil, do you draw much from the other matches in 24, 25? Does that play into any aspect of this for you? And why do you think we've struggled so much at Toyota Stadium?
Man, I have no reason, especially in our case where this will be the third coach to face Dallas, right? So if we're looking for correlation, there's not much other than the fact that the name is St. Louis City, and there might be a couple players that are repeats there, but I don't read into it much. I don't know if you guys do though.
I know contextually, June 15th, 2024, the second time we played him was 2 weeks before Carnell got fired. So we were obviously in a downward spiral at that point. If you also remember, Carnell had used quotes like, we're trying to bridge the gap until we get our new players in. So it was during that time period. And then July 19th, 2025, it was kind of similar where we're still trying to find our footing with David Critchley. The club just wasn't in a good spot. And the heat, I think, goes into this as well. To your point, Phil, there's not a whole lot that I really draw outside of, maybe the last game we played at home last season has more to draw from in what we can expect from FC Dallas versus the earlier one. The heat to me is just the most. That's the thing that you can really draw correlations to, because all of these matches happened in June and July. And June and July heat in Frisco, Texas is pretty intense. And if you go back and watch any of those highlights from those games, our guys are sweating by the second minute of the game. And so to play them in April, I think, is a little bit of a gift. There's a lot of other games we have this season that kind of mirror this, where we're not playing certain teams in the dead of summer that otherwise would impact it. So that is a positive going into this to me. And if you're looking for changes or differences from the last few seasons, that's a good place to start, at least in my opinion. It might be the only thing that's different, Phil, to your point.
Yeah, and not to take us backwards here, but I did hear a correlation in the things you were saying and mentioning bridging the gap and rebuilding new system. We're still in that phase, right? So I think maybe that's the correlation that I would point to. But the heat is no small factor. Looking over at Stu, Minnesota native to some extent. I wonder if they'll take that into consideration when we have that unbalanced schedule as far as, when they change the seasons and all of that, go to the European schedule. Will they consider summer as well as winter? That's something I'll wonder in the future.
You get those matches, Stu, in November, December, maybe February, March in Dallas instead of May, June, July, August. That's a pretty sizable change and an impact.
Yeah, and actually, Dallas fans were some of the ones digging back memories of when people were debating this. I saw some Dallas fans that were upset because November games, they don't exactly like the weather in November. So now they're going to end up with 3 weeks of November games going forward in perpetuity with the schedule changeover. But yeah, no, I'd definitely rather play in Dallas in the springtime than the summer, though. Curious what the difference in temperature humidity is in Dallas in June and St. Louis in August, because if you're a new signing in St. Louis, you got to get used to August weather. St. Louis or Kansas City are brutal in August, September. So trial by fire a little bit.
That's a good point.
So both of these teams are in fairly decent form. So the Heat might not play as much of a factor this year as it has previous years. And in fact, looking at the forecast for Saturday, because if we're talking Heat, we might as well include what we expect the match to be like on boots on the ground. Saturday there's a cloudy day in Frisco, a 20% chance of rain with a high of 80 and a low of 66. So match time, it won't be sweltering. It won't be in the 90s, thankfully. And in fact, the forecast looks like around 77 degrees as the sun sets, with a very little chance for rain. So 77 with the humidity. It'll still be a little muggy, I think, but it won't be that bad. And hopefully this year will break that curse of no goals scored at the very least. But looking at the form of these two teams, St. Louis tied 12th in the West, 1-3-2, -3 goal differential still after our 1-1 draw last week. 5 goals scored, 8 goals against, whereas Dallas is tied for 6th in the West with a 3-1-2 record, a +5 goal differential, 14 goals scored, and 9 goals allowed. A pretty sizable difference in the goals scored. Not as much the goals allowed. 8 goals allowed for St. Louis, 9 goals allowed for Dallas. It's the goal scoring that's really been the difference here. 5 for St. Louis, 14 for Dallas. And Dallas has come in buckets. So we've only played 6 games. Both teams have played 6 games. Dallas had a 3-2 win against Toronto to start the season. They had a 0-0 draw, a 1-0 loss, so a couple goalless matches in their second and third matchups against Nashville and LAFC, but then a 3-3 draw against San Diego, a 4-3 win against Houston, and a 4-0 win last week against DC United. Now, DC United is a borderline dumpster fire right now. They're absolutely pitiful. They're getting made fun of across the board. Things are just not going well for DC United. So a 4-0 win from FC Dallas, to me, is akin to when New England dropped 6, I think it was, on Cincinnati the week before we played them. Everybody started, worrying all of a sudden that maybe New England's a powerhouse, and we ended up turning the tables on them. This is kind of that opportunity for me. Early thoughts, Stu, on Dallas's performance in these first few matchups?
Well, Dallas fans are certainly excited about the form. They do seem to be coming into rounding out and growing into their team. We'll get into some of their key players later, but a guy like Logan Farrington, who's absolutely just in stellar form right now. They had all Pistons firing against DC United 4-0, and it sounded like, I didn't watch more than just highlights of that match, but it sounded like it could have been more. They're certainly on fire. And, you talk about facing the Revs earlier this year. Dallas does seem like a different type of team, though, than the Revs. I mean, Revs, who else did they play? They played Cincy coming off a CCC week.
That
Dallas
was the thing.
Dallas held Nashville scoreless, didn't they?
Yeah.
Held
LAFC to 1
so,
goal.
That's LAFC to 1 goal. I mean, Toronto scored twice against them, so you take that as you will. But also, they went toe-to-toe with San Diego, who's top dog. I mean, Houston's not too shabby. So DC United's a dumpster fire, but we'll see where we fall on that spectrum on Saturday.
Phil, our friends over at 615 Soccer, Ben Wright and group, have created a power rankings methodology. If you are interested, I've tweeted it out earlier on Thursday. 615 Soccer, all spelled out.com. They have their power rankings that include a transparent methodology. And in that transparent methodology, FC Dallas is currently 6th in the power rankings, where St. Louis City is 15th. So we've been climbing this, but FC Dallas has as well. And they're starting to reach those upper echelons and to be in the conversation alongside the Vancouver, the LAFC, the Earthquake, RSL, and then Dallas from a Western Conference perspective. From there, it's Seattle right behind them. So do you feel these power rankings accurately reflect what we can expect FC Dallas to be, this kind of powerhouse this Saturday?
Yes and no. I'm glad you brought up the power rankings because I didn't want to spoil them. You're talking about them, but Stu, you brought up a couple good things that might throw this off. When we look at Matt, you brought this to my attention. I didn't look at it till you brought it up, so thank you so much for doing that. But strength of schedule, when we look at it, FC Dallas, St. Louis has the top most difficult schedule, as you said, Matt. FC Dallas is one, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth most difficult schedule. But you mentioned, Stu, the Champions Club. I'm saying that wrong. The Champions
Cup.
CCC. You know what I'm saying. Sorry. Is Nashville's in that, LAFC's in that, and San Diego's in that. So all those teams are playing, effectively 2 games a week, often 3 games at least every 2 weeks. So they got probably a bit of an easier version of those clubs, even though they're all quite good, and DC United's not good. So even though their schedule looks pretty tough on paper, I think we get a bit of a discount there. But that's all I'm noticing. I would say it's not like we should underestimate Dallas in any way.
No, and I think the form that St. Louis is coming in, we're all pretty familiar with how St. Louis has been these past few games. So from a city perspective, we know exactly what we can expect, I think, from a Yoann Damet offense through 6 games. The stout defense, the first stat that I'll drop on this one is that City has allowed, and I think I talked about this on Fallout, is City has allowed, or not allowed rather, more than 1.55 expected goals against in any game this season. That's a massive key to how consistent St. Louis's defense has been. They haven't allowed more than 1.55 goals against as far as the expected goals against go. The wide play for St. Louis, we know what we've seen from Santos and Valum, and at times Salio, and at times Sergio Cordova. Sorry to laugh at that one. But the wide play that's continuing, they prioritize it despite, as we'll talk about later, a lack of success in things like crossing. A 10 to 15% average success rate between guys like Santos, Valum, and Salio, and consistent struggles in the final third. These are hallmarks of what St. Louis has been doing. Low XG, poor finishing, getting the ball to the final third, not able to finish, and just struggling against numbers in the box by and large. The saving grace being Brendan McSorley's goal against NYCFC, which came in the dying minute, and it came in a modified set piece that we created, and it really had nothing to do with the quote-unquote run of play. That's St. Louis in a nutshell, I feel, so far this season. But one of the positives that I think we're carrying into this FC Dallas match is the health and availability of our players. Salio is hurt. We know that. An ACL injury. We still don't know the full timeline for Salio to return, but we're expecting it to be a very long-term injury. Everyone else, though, is still healthy in training. It's the second week in a row we've been able to say this, but we've got a little more positive news on the horizon for St. Louis, even before they go face FC Dallas. The only update that was noteworthy this week is Chris Durkin did sustain a knock against NYCFC. That slide tackle that he had that led to NYCFC's goal on that very same play, Durkin was hurt and he couldn't actually run well after that. And so they subbed him out a few minutes later. He was held out of team training on Tuesday, but he was back in training by Thursday. He should be good to go. He might carry a questionable tag. We'll see. But other than that, the real good news, and this is where I don't mean to bury the lead, but if you haven't heard, because Stu mentioned it on our live stream earlier or not, Edu Leuven is going to be back in action this week, but for City 2 on Friday night when they play Colorado Rapids 2. Yoann Damet said on Thursday during his press conference that there were guys that will be from the first team playing down for City 2 on Friday. Edu is one of those players. So we can expect to see Leuven at Energizer Park on Friday night. Absolutely fantastic news. Could not be more excited because this is the return to play. This is the gaining the fitness, gaining the match experience at City 2, and then moving on. This is a blueprint of a plan from Yoann Damet. But looking in the future, as we know that this is the first match in 8 days, Damet also said for Wednesday's match next week, and this is probably going to be pertinent for you all, there is no thought on City 2 guys coming up on Wednesday. So as we go into FC Dallas and we know that there's no plans for what happens with City 2 next Wednesday, Yoann Damet also said that Leuven won't be the only player from City playing down for City 2. So knowing the availability is right there for City guys, Phil, who else might we expect to see? Who do you expect to see play down with City 2 to join Edu Leuven?
Well, Aaron Leak just said it. We saw almost a first team filled City 2 a couple games ago. And so I think Falou Fall, I'm not alone in kind of pining to see him at that left center back role. I don't think it's like a dead on bullseye kind of a thing that he needs to start. But I think if we were to tinker anywhere on the field right now, I would say that's the place that I want to try the most, just because we've seen what Fall can do with his feet passing forward. And in this system, I think it rewards someone who is bold playing out of the back. They ask a lot of those guys, and I think Fall would succeed. I think he would fail at least once a game for a while until he kind of gets some veteran experience and get his feet under him. But I would really love to see it. He could be a superstar back there. I also saw, I think it was someone posted about Baumgartel's, what is he? He has like 4th in touches in MLS. And that's massive. And so we're seeing how much the back line is getting the ball and getting touches, and how vital it is that they're good on the ball. And Fall, to me, is just I'll only do one because I went long, but I'm really excited to see what he's capable of back there.
Yeah, that stat brought to us this week, I believe, by Utes Media and our friend Drew Young. So shout out to them for that post. That's a really good shout out about Baumgartel's effectiveness. Stu, anybody else that we should look out for City 2 on Friday?
I mean, if you're looking for guys who are supposedly getting fit and needing minutes, Tomas Ostrak would be one I would look for. Sangbin's a guy who's not getting a ton of minutes. Maybe if you want to get him full 90 before Wednesday, do you put McNaughton out there? But it seems like McNaughton's already embedded in the first team. No reason to do that. So yeah, Ostrak, Leuven, midfield, especially if we're going to see that on the senior squad sooner rather than later. It'd be interesting. Look for them. There's some question whether or not Joyner is eligible. I don't know if that was straightened out. It
wasn't confirmed today.
Yeah,
I know that.
So, I mean, obviously hoping Joyner travels and he's in Dallas on Saturday, but
that's
thinking
the key.
ahead to next Wednesday. I guess.
Yeah, that's the key though, Stu, right? Is that the Friday night match is in St. Louis and the Saturday match is in Dallas. And so you would expect that anybody that's eligible to play, at least I would expect anybody eligible or going to be on the Matchday roster for City on Saturday will be with City and not City 2. So there's not going to be a pre-situation necessarily where you're going to have, let's say, Mekhi Joyner, because he's a perfect example to me. You're not going to have Mekhi Joyner stay in St. Louis, play for City 2 X number of minutes, and then have him fly down to Frisco and be on the Matchday roster. We're too deep to have that happen, and I don't think that's in DeMay's plans. I think what I interpreted his comments during the press conference to mean is that guys who won't make the Matchday roster are going to play for City 2, and that's their opportunity to get a minute. It's almost in a backwards way, but you don't have the benefit of being able to say, if guys didn't get minutes on Saturday, we're going to play them for City 2. I'm looking at not just Leuven and Ostrak and Falou Fall. Mbake, I think he's a no-brainer to play for City 2, or at least be available because of past games here recently. You're looking at a center back depth chart that includes Polvera, Baumgartel, Orozco, and then McNaughton. Lucas McNaughton is our next up center back. And so it would not surprise me at all if Mbake is down there as well. Probably both Falls. Kyle Hebert is definitely one that I've got on my board as going to be with City 2. Josh Arrow hasn't seen time with either side, so I don't expect him either way. But Kyle Hebert, yes, absolutely. In the attack, Sangbin has been with City 2, but he's been ineffective. So you also have to, it's a balancing act in this conversation, because you don't want to limit your attacking options for City, but at the same time, we do have depth. And so I wouldn't mind to see Sangbin, because if Sangbin goes and plays for City 2 on Friday, that to me means it frees up space for Mekhi Joyner, among other people. You also have likely any number of, you've got, probably your Betchers and your Hartles starting, but Cordova, Toyshirt, Mekhi, did I say Cordova?
Yeah.
Sangbin is an option, but Thomas Totlin is one that I would also not expect to see for City 2. I think for the City wingback room, it's Santos, Valum, and Totlin. Those are your three primary players. So
they have to be ready to sub in.
Exactly.
If they're not playing. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's my thought on the depth and why we might not see some players, even if we don't expect them to feature for City on Friday, or on Saturday rather. And we'll get to our starting 11s to talk about that.
Real quick too, I think Tyler Pierce and Glover are not on the injury report, so it'd be really cool to see them get some time if possible. It might be too soon. Maybe they're playing with the academy or something.
You know what's crazy? Tyson Pierce, I'm all for, and I think you're right. I have that. I think I had that name written down somewhere. Of Tyson Pierce is a player that I would expect to see for City too, if he's at that point. He's been training fully with the team, so I'm not.
Okay.
I would expect it.
Nice.
Caden Glover has not been training with the team. He almost has a phantom type injury going on, and I don't mean to be. I'm just going to say it. The team doesn't seem to care enough about Caden Glover to include him on the injury reports. Because there was a period of time earlier this year where he was either walking around on a boot or clearly injuring something, but they just didn't include him on the injury report. And I know I have a thought about Caden Glover and the fact that he's only played like 60 some minutes in 4 seasons. And I'm going to keep touting that stat because I'm so disappointed. Wow. But honestly, he was hurt earlier this year and the team didn't put him on their availability report. And he's not been training with the team and nobody's been asking about him because quite frankly, I don't want to waste a question that I'm getting on Caden Glover because there's no point at this stage in the game. And so he's just a wasted roster slot at this time. And that seems rough, but at the end of the day, we're talking City 2 and he's not in the conversation for anything. So not to belabor that point, but I blame both of you for getting me on that rant.
Hey, prove him wrong, at this point.
Exactly. Yeah. Prove me wrong. I would take that. So you're listening to Flyover Footy on the Big 550 KTRS. Guys, I want to get your thoughts on some of the big storylines for St. Louis before we turn our focus on Dallas briefly and then hit the end of this show. But for City, I've come up with some storylines that I'm following into this match. The first one starts off very simply. Will Yohan Demay continue with his consistent 11 that we've been seeing? Let's start with you, Phil.
Yes. I think if there was going to be a change, last week was it. You know what I mean? Like, they had time off. They could have tried out new lineups, given other guys a try, and then he could still hold to that. I want to give guys a good long stretch before I start doubting them or taking them out. Like, they need to have, we know the quotes that he said. Mm-hmm. So if he was going to change, it would have been last week, and it didn't happen, like hardly at all. So keep watching City too, like we talked about. But man, I think it's going to be like 1 or 2 players at most tweaked here and there.
Let's do.
Yeah, I think, last week, we saw a little bit of that with Cordova starting in that with our 10 slot. And I think Polvera moving to the, midfield was maybe a sign that he's opening up to that move happening in the future as well. I'm not sure. I think not cracks, but the signs are developing that he's open to the idea of maybe starting to change his starting 11 a little bit. And I'm frankly hoping he's open to that too, as well as a fan. I would like to see a few changes, maybe personally myself, but with the full lineup or full healthy lineup, we'll be able to see really who he values and what he values.
This next one, I think, gets to maybe why we want to see some of the changes. Another storyline to follow is the continued inefficiency of our wingbacks in general, but specifically to assist in goal scoring. Later on, I've got some really fun stats about Conrad Wallem in how actually quality he's been in the final third in certain phases. But for this conversation, our crossing is massively ineffective. Rafael Santos, by Opta stats, is 3 for 32 and leads all players in Major League Soccer the number of crosses attempted, and is of those players with, I think, more than 10 crosses. He leads the league in the worst success attempt percentage. I don't know a good word to describe his work in crossing the ball other than abysmal. Conrad Wallem is 4 for 17, so he's not great, but it's definitely a marked improvement in his crossing efficiency compared to Rafael Santos. So why is this so inefficient, and what's the answer? Is it the players' quality and the touches they're getting on the ball? Is it the number of players that we're getting in the box compared to the opposition, and it's just a disadvantage? Is it the fact that our wingbacks might not be getting the ball, receiving it in good positions to be able to get a good quality cross off with the timing they need? Stu, what's going on with our wingbacks here?
Well, with a totally blind, not based up by stats eye test, Santos, who, his crossing ability was one of the things he was touted for, his set piece delivery and his crossing ability with the occasional, crazy outside the box screamer. on net or not. The quality of crosses doesn't seem to be there. Now, it could be all the other factors you said as well, but he doesn't seem to be delivering crosses accurately or high enough rate that we need him to be doing, which he's definitely been one of my main disappointments so far this season.
Stu, or Phil, any other thoughts on our wingbacks?
Yep, I'm going to try to go as fast as I can because I have so many thoughts on this. I think Santos, I think Dame knows that we need to get more out of Vollum. And when he was out wide, we're keeping those wings backs so high and wide that I think the Celio start was because he wanted Celio to stay wide and he wanted Vollum to get more involved. And I think that's vital for getting the most out of him and improving St. Louis's wingback usage. And I think it worked, even though Celio had a worse game, Vollum had a better game, and I think that was great. And when you look at our stable of wingbacks, if you want a high and wide left wingback who's also on the same side as Hartle, and Hartle needs to float, this wingback is stuck staying high and wide left, and you want a left-footed player there. Honestly, you can put Vollum there, but then he's again going to be stuck high and wide, and he won't be able to get involved. So I think Santos, we need to view him as he has to be that placeholder, and we don't have many other options in that regard. And he's not bad, but I think that's also why we saw Cordova being stuck out on wide right where he doesn't belong, is because I think they're focusing on getting Vollum involved, because I think he's the person who's the most untapped, like I said. So if we have to force people out wide that we don't want there, or they aren't getting the ball well enough in those areas, I think the next thing we think is maybe those guys have to be there, because in order to make this attack work. The next thing is Leuven, which Danny D, when I posted this massive confusion, Matt, when you posted that series of stats and plot graphs here about our wingbacks, I was like, I agree, this is terrible. Danny D replied with the fact that maybe they're not getting the ball soon enough, as you mentioned, Matt, and perhaps Leuven coming in, he's the only player in our roster really that does big switches early. He gets the ball, turns, and he looks to send the ball high and wide. So if we get Leuven in there, we might also improve Vollum. We might also improve Santos, and we might also not have to, pigeonhole Cordova wide. Maybe Songbin is all of a sudden useful. A lot of things open up if we get Leuven in there, in my opinion.
So then that leads to my next question is, we've had overall poor goal scoring ability from the run of play. We've had 5 goals scored. One of them have been from what you could consider a possession buildup, the McSorley goal being at NYCFC, though I discount that as a purely possession buildup that you could hang your hat on because of the nature of the timing of the goal and the fact that we were clearly building for a set piece as the final shot in the game. So if that's our only goal from the run of play, from a possession, which we're a possession-based team now, from a buildup, the wingbacks are obviously a portion of that, but is there anything else we could point to as this is a massive deficiency? And it might start with those center mids, as it's not necessarily Leuven. That could actually be the missing piece, to borrow a Lutzism, that he could be the missing puzzle piece that comes in and really turns up a notch to this offense, Phil. I mean, I think I would absolutely agree with you that I might even go so far, Phil, as to say that might fix more than just the wingback play. It might fix a lot of our overall buildup.
Completely agree. I think we've also talked about on KTRs, we were saying how the center mids are being pretty conservative. And then we look at all the shots that every player on St. Louis is able to get. I think Durkin was like 5th or 6th on that list, and he has 2 on target out of 8 or 12 at this point. I can't remember. And really so bad. If that person becomes either Leuven shooting or Leuven with the ball passing it to Hartle shooting more often instead of Durkin, he's not meant to be that player, even though he's being used very nicely. There's going to be trade-offs to losing Durkin in a lot of other ways, but it might help our shooting efficiency, which is not looking too good right now.
And then the couple last notes, Stu and Phil, before we get into our starting 11 and quickly preview FC Dallas before I'll deep dive FC Dallas in our last call here. Is our set piece play improving? Do we get eye test and stats? Because the stats really aren't telling us that it's improving massively, though we had a goal scored off the corner of New England. And if I'm going to discount that, the goal that we scored from McNaughton to McSorley in the run of play, I got to give credit to it as a set piece of sorts. Do we feel like we're improving, at least team wide, in how we're attacking these set pieces, Stu?
Well, I mean, talk about another thing that Leuven will, absolutely improve once he comes back. You're looking at all of our set pieces are going to be improved by quite a bit with him out there. No, the McNaughton to McSorsley, that was well drawn up, clearly some sort of training ground exercise, and it was awesome to see. It does seem to be improving. It would be amazing if we just became experts at all and very lethal at set piece play. I mean, last year we were what was it? Padelford had his long throws, and we were loving that, even though they were ultimately ineffective. No, I mean, set pieces are fun, just to see them run really well. I know and I won't go on a rant, but there's a lot of complaints about how some modern teams are playing just for corners and set pieces, but I'll leave that rant for another off-air segment.
Arsenal.
Yeah.
Cough.
I believe the team you're referring to is borderline leading the Premier League in goals allowed, and also maybe leading the Premier League.
There's something wrong with my headphones.
I couldn't quite hear you. You broke up a little bit there, Phil. I was just trying to assume. I'm gonna run through FC Dallas in a brief minute because we are way behind, so we can get to our 11 and our predicted score for this matchup. But everybody who's listening to this cares more about St. Louis anyway, so I'm not disappointed in this conversation at all. FC Dallas, if you're looking to get some info on who they are, what they are, and who they will start. They are basically a low block team. They are transition focused. They deliberately cede possession a lot. They have a 3 center back look. They have 2 or 3 midfielders usually that sit in a midfield pivot, compact. They push their opponents wide. When they win the ball, they like to transition immediately. They love the long ball over the top to, and this is a name you're probably going to hear a lot on the broadcast, Peter Musa. Peter Musa leads, tied for goals scored in Major League Soccer right now with Sam Surridge, 7, and he torched us last year with a brace. Peter Musa is a tall and fast and target striker, and he will do us damage if we can't mark him. Wing backs, they also use their wing backs, Johansson and Kamungo or Shackmore. They will push forward aggressively when Dallas has space. Johansson in particular, he missed last week after some Swedish international duty. He is a Swede that might be the biggest name added to the roster, as our friends at Big D Soccer had said. Speedy fullback. They do like to use set pieces to their advantage to at least create the set pieces and then try and create chances from them, even though they've only scored 1 set piece goal. But they have a defensive vulnerability to them. When Dallas has their own version of a press, when it breaks down and opponents can play through their midfield, which is stacked with 3 players, they are at a disadvantage. They had a 35% possession against San Diego, which usually would be to their advantage, but San Diego tore them apart with 3 goals in that. Against Houston, they ceded goals in 3 goals in a 6-minute span, so they are prone to allowing multiple goals in a very short period of time. They can get on tilt that way, but they do have star power. Peter Musa, Logan Farrington, they lead the charge. They lead the attack. They have a central midfield of Christian Kappas. They have Ramiro as another midfielder. They're probably their best signing this year, Santiago Moreno. He came on as a sub against DC United here recently, played just 5 minutes, but generated 0.6 expected goals in just 5 minutes. And our friends at Third Degree Soccer said, quote, "Oh my, was Santiago Moreno exciting or what? He played just 5 minutes, but put up a 0.6 XG and a 0.2 expected assists. Can't wait to see more." And we might get to see more, unfortunately, this week against St. Louis. Guys, quick thoughts on Dallas before we get into our St. Louis starting 11. Stu.
I mean, they are stacked with talent. We talked off air about how they just have, we talk about our wing back options being fairly limited. They have 4 MLS starter quality wing back options. A guy you didn't even talk about, Joaquin Valiente, who is Uruguayan. He's 21 years old, something like that, 22. He's a young guy. He has a high upside too. But yeah, Santiago Moreno, he's going to be the really interesting guy. He was a Portland Timbers for a while, kind of had his moments there, but ultimately underwhelmed. But now he's coming back to MLS, and we'll see if he can, reach the peak and unlock the talent that he obviously has. Hopefully not against us.
Bill, thoughts on Dallas?
Yeah, it's a bit of a non-answer, but I like the way that Dallas has kind of had the same system for a long time, and we're seeing them stick with it, build, and continue to build, and it feels like Moreno is a bit of a cherry on top because Musa was such an amazing ad for them, but adding in more pieces and seeing them improve in little ways every single year and keeping the same system, I think this is something we hope for in St. Louis. So that's my comment on Dallas, having not known much else about them, honestly.
Well, yeah, the consistency is something, Stu, that I've definitely noticed. Phil, the idea of Dallas in this anti-possession, this low block, it's not just prevalent in what we saw at the end of last season where St. Louis had 42, 43 shots because of the red card and Dallas tied it up at Energizer Park. We all remember that. It was an egregious amount of shots without being able to score a goal. David Critchley was so upset about how that ended up. And that speaks to Dallas's willingness to drop back. And so I think the danger is even at home, maybe less so at home, but even at home, if Dallas goes up, they would bunker even further back, I would think. Stu?
Yeah, and to bring it way back to the beginning of the podcast when we talked about the timing of facing Dallas, it's talking about Peter Musa, Musa will be gone probably after the summer transfer window. He seems like the next MLS striker who's destined for EFL championship in England.
Yeah.
So, maybe we did actually get slightly unfortunate on the timing this year because we'll face Musa when some other Western Conference teams won't.
You know who else we have to face this Saturday? Filip Ducic.
Is it him again? In Dallas?
The first time he's head reffed a city match since the infamous however moment.
Was that against Dallas too, or am I mixing that up?
Oh, I should have done my research on that one.
Sorry,
I don't think that was against Dallas.
Okay.
But yeah, the fact that he hasn't been allowed or come back to Energizer Park since he did that to us speaks volumes.
Agree.
If the broadcast doesn't address that or show the highlight of that, it would be egregious. I would just be so disappointed. I should have looked up what exact play that was, but if you're unfamiliar, you don't remember Filip Ducic. There was a play at Energizer Park not too long ago. Was it against Atlanta United?
Thanks, Luke.
Was it a year or two ago? It feels like a lifetime ago, where we had a foul situation or an offside situation, and it was going to go our way. The first part of the VAR was positive for us. This was a home game, and he comes out and announces this as this good thing happened for you, and then waited for the fans to cheer, and then said, yeah, Nukvi Thorson goal that was offside, and then announced it as there was no offside kind of a thing. Goal was scored. However, as fans are cheering, however, I think it was a foul in the run of play that he ends up calling.
The smile he had was just the smirk.
He knew
what he was doing.
Now I'm on tilt as we go into our starting 11. I shouldn't.
I'm mad right now. Yeah.
Guys, let's run this down on the first part with KTRS with our starting 11s, and I'll kick it off. I've got Roman Berkey, Dante Polvera, Timo Baumgartel, Haziel Orozco as our back three with Berkey as keeper. Rafael Santos on the left, Conrad Vollum on the right, Durkin and Edelman in the midfield, Hartl, Toyshirt, and Bescher. I'm going with that old school pre-Toyshirt ankle injury. I don't see a reason that DeMay is looking to change things except for getting Sergio Cordova out of the lineup. That's at this point, I haven't seen a ton of him. Nothing I've seen is exciting, and we can't. I'm starting to become of the opinion that we can't be trying to give a guy an opportunity to prove himself in a game situation when he has not succeeded in the slightest, because it will be to the detriment of our team. Like, we have Toyshirt there ready to go, who was seeing successful markers prior to his injury. And that's my thing, is that nobody has done anything to cause Toyshirt to lose his job while hurt. So it's him ready to go in. That's my opinion. What about you, Phil?
I wouldn't change that. If I were to guess what's going to happen, it'd be that. And I guess I'll just question, how can we fiddle with this and still get what we want? Would it be putting Cordova up top with Betcher out wide? Because I think Betcher's the only person who can go out wide and stay out there and do well, other than Celio. I really can't think of anyone else unless you really pigeonholed Songbin into staying out there.
Yeah.
And I think he would be equally ineffective as Cordova. But maybe also I don't think they'll change their formation, but if I had to choose one wrinkle, it would be to put Cordova and Betcher up top and let both of them go wide at different times. And I think they could read off of each other and become really fun to watch and still get all the pressing that we need out of it. So that would be the only wrinkle I would consider. Otherwise, I think it's gonna be the same 11 as usual.
I also wasn't impressed by Cordova's pressing. Wasn't impressed by the pressing.
That's the worry, right? I would put him up top if I thought he could press for sure. And that was exactly my reason. Like maybe he couldn't do that.
What about Brendan McSorley? After last week's fireworks at the end of the game, he's producing in the later stages of a game. He leads with a very small sample size of all of those players with 100 minutes or more. He is top 5 in expected goals per shot. So he's getting quality shots. He's getting volume of shots per 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you start to see him expand his role, or is he still at that point your end of game specialist?
Matt, you asked him that question, right? You asked Dame that question, didn't you?
Yeah, and
his comments were not encouragking in that way. That's the only reason I didn't say anything.
Right.
Yeah, but I like the idea. I do.
And I know a lot of people
it at some point, right?
A lot of people are wondering it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get McSorley to have success match over match, especially in comparison to what happened in the 60, 70 minutes prior to him entering. And it's only natural to wonder. And we're not even talking about Mekhi Joyner yet, because we talked about him a couple of weeks ago when Toyshirt went down. We saw the propensity to not play him. Now DeMay is playing him more on the wings when he subs in. It's just
and I'm wrong. I said something wrong that better than Betcher would be Joyner. Joyner would be a great, if you told Joyner to stay out wide and dribble a little bit, he's the next best to doing that to Celio. I was totally wrong a minute ago, but will he trust him to start? I'd like to see it. And the question is, I don't know if Stu's going to give his, but how does this change? Does the Open Cup change anything? I think that's the only way we might see more changes than typical.
And DeMay did say, call this coach speak or whatever you want to call it. DeMay did say that the Open Cup and the match next week they do not play into his decision for the starting 11 or who he selects. So he's treating it match by match, which I wouldn't expect a manager to say anything different. So that could be coach speak, but at the same time, if Mekhi doesn't feature on Saturday, he will feature on Wednesday against FC Tulsa. Stu, you want to go with your 11?
Yeah, absolutely. I am going with a pretty similar one, but I'm predicting a slight change. Berkey, Polvera, Baumgartel, Orozco, and then I'll go with Vollum on the left, Durkin, Edelman, Totland on the right wing back, Hartle, Toykert, and Betcher. Now, I don't know if Totland will be fully match fit to start or trusted in that situation, but I'm just kind of slightly worn out on Santos, to be honest.
Honestly, the more I think about that, the more I like that. And I might vote with you when it comes to our consensus 11, because partly the ineffectiveness of Santos we talked about, but also the defensive need for our wingbacks. I like Vollum and Totland defensively. Obviously, our wingbacks get high, and obviously they push forward and they bomb up, and they're meant to get wide. But I think in this matchup, we may need some additional help on the wide areas defensively. And so I trust Vollum and Totland more than I trust Santos defensively. Santos was not brought to be a defensive left wing back. That was the thing that Colorado had said. All fans of Colorado, all media had told us he's not a defensive left wing back. He is a left winger playing as a left wing back. He'll give you what you need out wide at times, but he should not be relied upon defensively. And I think this is a match where that could play into it. So if there was a change to be made, I would definitely support that. How about a score prediction? Stu, let's start with you.
So I'm going to go with St. Louis breaks the streak and actually scores a goal versus Dallas. But however, I think we fall this one 2-1.
Brutal. I hate how you did that. Phil.
Did you do the thing? But well done.
However, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well done. I'm going to say 1-0. I don't think we'll break the streak. And I think I'll be pretty negative on this one. And then I'll start having hope once Leuven's back because, like we said, I think it might help some things.
So this is my plug for the last call, the back half of our podcast, because I'm gonna go into some details on why I think this way. But FC Dallas has scored a bucket of goals in their past few games, 3, 4, 4. I mean, they are on a goal scoring tear. But I do think that from what I've seen from St. Louis's defense so far this season, that St. Louis will be the team to get FC Dallas back into that low scoring model that they had against Nashville and LAFC. I'm going to deviate from my notes and say a 2-1 win for St. Louis.
Bold prediction.
I think it's bold. I'm shocked that I actually said it because we have our offense hasn't shown that they can create it outside of that New England, but they manufacture goals. They've shown they can manufacture goals, True. If not generate them in the run of play with their traditional buildup. So I've got positive thoughts on that. Guys, any last thoughts before we get out of here on the KTRS portion? Phil, the man of the hour.
No, good to be back with you guys. This was a lot of fun. And Matt hosting, my goodness, he's got some skills, huh? Well done.
I've finally tuned them this year out of necessity more than anything else. Stu, how about you?
Not really. I'm just looking forward to this one, and really, you aim to be a pessimist. You predict pessimism and put the bar low, or at least I do. Matt, you're going high this week, but aim low, miss low. So you can only exceed expectations if you expect a loss.
Aim low, miss low. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's it for us on Flyover Footy on the Big 550 KTRS. Enjoy the game. For Phil Grooms, Stuart Holgren, I'm Matt Baker. Thank you for joining us, and check out our podcast. Search Flyover Footy wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you later. All right. That was only 10 minutes longer than I anticipated it being.
Good job, because I talked a lot.
Not enough, Phil. Not enough.
I've gotten to be really good at editing for KTRS, so I don't mind it at all. Are both of you heading out?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Rough week, dude.
All good. I'm the one leaving you guys. So this I'll say it on our on the last call. I keep forgetting what I'm titling this. But I'm taking a hiatus from Flyover for the next week. Phil's going to be stepping in for Fallout. Phil's going to be stepping in for next Thursday, and it's perfect timing with the Open Cup. So I couldn't have asked for, like we were joking earlier, but literally I could not have asked for a better time on this.
I do like how you mentioned I'm not sure how to put this in that you constantly are doing things with Flyover, which is amazing. But you led up to it with I'm taking a hiatus. And then it's 1 week.
A week.
1 week. Yeah.
I was like, oh man, 3 months, 4 months. Is he coming back after World Cup, refreshed and ready to go again? But yeah, no, I'm just teasing you, Matt. I know for you, a week is probably 8 podcasts, 3 press conferences, and 4 trainings. So
I like this. I'm taking a hiatus. However,
oh God,
theme tonight. It's so good. Well done, everyone.
Too good. I don't know when the Fallout's going to be after. I think it's the Seattle game, but I'll be back for that. And I get back from my trip on Saturday, so I will be watching that game, and I'll be watching the Open Cup game. I think I'll be watching that from Epcot if I have my schedule correct.
Fun.
Which we'll see how many people I can get to join me at the English pub in Epcot.
Perfect.
To watch St. Louis City's Open Cup match. I'll just bring my tablet in there.
I was going to say, they don't have TVs there. I've checked.
No.
Because I've wanted to watch games inside that pub. It would be a game changer if they put soccer games in there.
I'm going to make it happen.
I love it.
Yes. All right. Well, it was good talking to you guys. If you're missing Phil, then the next couple flyovers are your ticket, because I'm happy to have him back and filling in. And it's his bread and butter, the Open Cup, the greatest soccer tournament in the world. Good talking to you guys. Have a good one.
Yep. You too, man.
And for everybody else who's sticking with me, I will kick off the last call here in a moment. Going to grab a ceremonial drink, which I haven't actually done in quite a while because we've just been spilling over into that. So bear with me for just a moment. All right, on the agenda. Oh, I should probably actually get going on the pod before I start talking about on the agenda. That's for sure. Get back up here. All right. Eat It FA Cup. US Open Cup for life, by the way. Absolutely. Let's do this, guys. Welcome back to Flyover Footy. It's the last call. I think it's been like 2 or 3 weeks since we've actually done a last call, but I've kind of landed on that. I think I like where that's going. On this last call, while we finish up our drinks and we finish up this time talking about St. Louis City, we have more information about FC Dallas. I feel like the FC Dallas portion of that was abbreviated, so there's a little bit of depth that I want to add for our opposition before we pivot over into the actual matchup between FC Dallas and St. Louis City as far as things that I think you should watch for. This is like that secret tavern thing where there are things that I have to watch for stylistically that we just didn't get in the first part. So if you hung around and you're still tuning in, this is where you get that. And then we'll talk about City 2. We talked about the players in a little while and who we expect to see from City, but we will be talking about City 2 in just a little bit. For those of you who are watching on the live stream, I have added a new scarf or two to my collection over the past couple of weeks, and there is a Forest Park Rangers FC scarf that is behind me right there. If you are interested in any of their information, forestparkrangersfc.com, in addition to some meetups that they have coming up, one of them this week on Sunday and another one scheduled for May. So like-minded soccer fans, grassroots, community-owned, community-supported club, super fun. For this weekend on Saturday for the match, a little more detail on FC Dallas. FC Dallas, obviously, we talked about the low block, the transition, some of their starting 11, but FC Dallas in general over these first 6 games, they've kind of had, I would say, phases of games. The first couple of games that they've played in their first 2, Toronto and Nashville, they had some pretty poor performances, I would say, overall. They started the season really rough. 3-2 win. They had a worse XG than Toronto. They were still countering. They were still trying to play this transition-based game. Nashville, they were legitimately trying to avoid possession the entire time. Nashville is really good on the ball, but Nashville was able to use their organized defense. And that's kind of where I see a lot of FC Dallas's pitfalls and potential to beat them is with an organized defense. Now, whether you consider St. Louis to have an organized defense, that's kind of another story. St. Louis ends up defending in transition a lot just by the nature of how high of a line we keep. It's going to be an interesting battle to see. They had a 1-0 loss against LAFC where they had a pretty similar XG. Dallas actually competed really well against LAFC, just like they competed really well against San Diego, 3-3. And to their credit, FC Dallas came from behind. They were down 2-0 against San Diego, and they showed that they could flip a low block against San Diego. So they had a press that they could then beat and go in transition, and they could end up using their players in the attack, the Peter Mooses, the Logan Farringtons, and they could score. So they conceded 3. They had just 35% possession, but they managed to score on the counter to come back. And that was an impressive performance. And I think that match to me showed the beginnings of what we would see to be this FC Dallas dangerous team. After those first 4 matches, they went on to play Houston and they went on to play DC United. Now, these are the dangerous FC Dallas that I'm worried are they're carrying into this match against St. Louis. They beat Houston 4-3, and they were again down 3-2. So they were an underdog and they came back in the game. Dallas scored a 54th minute equalizer, an 86th minute winner. So they're a late, dangerous team in the second half. That's probably a big thing to watch out for is Dallas has won games. They have come from behind in the second half to win a game and take all 3 points. They are capable of that. They've proven it. And Peter Musa is front and center as the reason why. I mentioned earlier, DC United, I don't want to take a ton away. Dallas was completely on fire with an over 2 expected goals. They were at a 0.61 expected goals allowed. So they were just relentlessly hammering DC United. DC United is just in a free fall right now, not competing well. DC United is now in 8th place after dropping points, -4 goal differential. So they're playing above their weight in the table, but they've been receiving a lot of beatings here, and they're just not getting the respect they deserve, or any respect in MLS rather. On the injury front, FC Dallas, they're not really injured. Anderson Julio is the only injury that they had last week, and we expect him out this week. Forward, he's an attacking midfielder who plays as forward. He scored at least 5 goals in the last 4 seasons, so he is a consistent. And I guess from a St. Louis perspective, 5 goals in a season is kind of a lot, unfortunately. But in the past 4 seasons, he's been a big contributor to them. One of the big storylines that FC Dallas has for this season is their manager, Eric Quill. He's in their 2nd season as head coach. So when Phil and I were talking about the consistent look that FC Dallas has, Eric Quill is a part of this, taking over in 2025. Took them to the playoffs in their first season. A lot of issues in midseason with Lucho Acosta being the primary one. Y'all remember Lucho Acosta from FC Cincinnati, went to play for FC Dallas. He was shipped to Flamengo, and Quill pivoted to that three center back look mid-season with Peter Musa's 6 goals from the transfer window on. Peter Musa wasn't a new arrival, but after Lucho Acosta left, Peter Musa kind of hit fire. He was set fire and had 6 goals from August onward, and it took Dallas into the playoffs. And so that's kind of where Dallas transitioned to last season. And why that's important this season is they're not reinventing the wheel like St. Louis was. They're not building from the ground up, from scratch. They are building off of what they had really set into motion, I feel, middle of last season, once Eric Quill had his side set and they were progressing. And unlike what we did in the back half of 24 into 25, they kept consistent with their head coach, which allowed their players that they had some consistency. And so their identity remains the same. It's very in your face. It's very blunt. There was a press conference that Eric Quill had earlier this season, and his quote in that press conference was, "We're dogs. We're a bunch of dogs in this organization. We work hard and we care deeply about our goals." And then after the DC United win here recently, I saw another quote that said, "Their resilience is evident. We talked about giving up 6 goals in the last 2 games, and that's not us. We really wanted to focus on who we were behind the ball," talking about defensively. So that's an interesting part of this, is that after allowing so many goals in the games prior to DC United, they shored that up, and they wanted to show just how good of a defensive team that they could be, because their identity is rooted in this lower block, in this transition. And they pride themselves off of not getting beat while other teams are in possession. There's a lot of articles from Big D Soccer, from Third Degree, that talk about a lot of the best coverages of FC Dallas, talking about the team willingly surrendering possession. They desire to play that transition, either from a 3-5-2, or sometimes they morph into a 4-4-2, but they're willing to play without the ball and rely on those transition moments. Their average possession through 6 games has been around 46%, 44%, depending on the site you look. And it's always below MLS average, but they're able to have 14 goals scored. 14 goals scored puts them tied for 2nd in the entire MLS. It's Vancouver with 17 goals scored, and Dallas is tied with LAFC, and they are tied with New York City FC in number of goals scored. That's noteworthy, is they're able to be successful in these transition moments. And so you look at St. Louis's side. This is why I was talking earlier about wanting, or thinking, at least being open to the fact that Vala might start on the left with Totland on the right, because defending in transition is going to be important here. And what have I talked about in the past few weeks as a deficiency in defending for St. Louis? It's transition. Our goals are allowed in transition. Whether you look at the moments that Polvera steps up and he doesn't get the coverage behind him, or covering for other players that are out of position, or just turning the ball over in midfield and getting too aggressive in a counter press and trying to repress to regain possession of the ball. These are the moments that St. Louis struggles in. And so getting a high line that has numerical disadvantages in transition is how this St. Louis City side in 2026 has been beaten. And Dallas thrives on that. That is a problem for St. Louis. So it ultimately might come down to which team will not only get the first goal, but which team can dictate the pace overall. And can St. Louis continue this possession-based attack and generate enough chances on goal and enough good XG opportunities while still protecting, not getting outside themselves? And I think we've seen that in large portions of this season where it's just a moment that maybe Edelman gets too aggressive or Durkin makes a slide tackle and takes himself out of the play. And then things just escalate from there. Set defensively, when we are set and when the opposition has the ball, we're usually in a good spot. We've been very, very good a good consistent team in defending with a set defense, but we don't do it often. And so that's the issue, is you can't ride or die on your set defense if that's not your bread and butter and what you're trying to do and trying to implement. So we talked about FC Dallas in their system and how it works with the low block and the transition. I want to go a little bit into some of their key players. Petar Musa, 28 years old, Croatian forward. Like I said, leads all of MLS in goals scored this year. The Golden Boot leader, tied with Sam Surridge. 7 goals in 6 games. His career has 41 goals in 66 MLS matches. He's the prototypical DP striker that you want on a team. And he took over for when Lucho Costa left. He took this team, put him on their shoulders, and took them to the playoffs. He's the dude. He's the guy that will take them into the playoffs this year if they're going to make it. And Stu's comment about he could get sold is an absolutely true statement. And the more he scores, the more he's going to garner eyes from abroad. And that's the risk that Dallas takes in having that kind of. It's a risk any team in Major League Soccer takes, is having a good player for that long, 2-3 years. You're going to draw the attention if you're that consistently good and you're beating the rest of the league. Logan Farrington is a 22-year-old American homegrown, and he has been Dallas's biggest breakout star of the year. He played for them last year as he kind of grew into this role. 4 goals in 6 games, and his partnership with Petar Musa is an absolute dominant partnership up front. Dual striker, a 10 and a 9, however you want to refer to him. They are Dallas's striking pair, and they're the reason Dallas has 14 goals. They've got 11 of them between the two of them. We talked about Christian Copies. We talked about Ramiro. They're defensive midfielders. They're midfielders. Santiago Moreno, out wide. They just have a lot of talent and they have a lot of depth, and they've turned over the roster a little bit. Paxton Pomykal is gone from last season, but this is a dangerous and deep Dallas team, and their ability to come from behind late in games is a testament to that. Now, looking at how these two teams match up. So there are some really jarring collision points that we see here in how these teams have played so far in 6 games. It's really interesting to see which team will be able to score first and who's able to dictate this match, because St. Louis under Yohan Demay, we know they press high. We know they like to trap teams. We know they try to create these traps on the wings, and they try to force the ball into certain areas. And they like to have these triggers that enable their midfielders to really get involved, turn the ball over high, and then press forward if they're able to recover the ball. If Dallas is able to play through St. Louis's press, and if they're able to retain the ball and cleanly move it through, not over necessarily, but through St. Louis, then they might find enough space to actually make things work on St. Louis's high press. If they can't, I think we might see a lot of midfield battles. That's my really big concern in this match, is it might just get ugly with midfield battles all over the place if neither team is able to produce and create. Both St. Louis, both in possession to get the ball in dangerous areas for a shot in the final third, but Dallas in general, if they're just struggling to play through St. Louis, then you're just going to see a lot of, Dallas falling back, playing a little more conservative, a lot of dirty play and a lot of loose balls, maybe some ground duels that you have to go off of. Now, Dallas also has a pretty good long ball. Got to give credit to where credit's due. We know that their primary attackers are Petar Musa and Logan Farrington, but Ramiro and their center midfield has a really good touch to get over the top, really good timing to reach both of those. So Durkin and Edelman and anybody, and Hartle even defensively in the midfield, they're going to have to not just watch for their midfield to play through St. Louis, but they're going to have to watch for the long ball, create enough pressure on them to where they don't get a good first touch. They don't have enough time to watch for where Farrington or Musa are up high and allow them to time those passes correctly. They need to be in their faces at all times. So St. Louis closing these gaps is going to be one of the biggest deals. The height advantage for Dallas, it's not really a height advantage in this game. Petar Musa is 6'3", but we have height in that same range of Timo Baumgartel and Dante Polvera. I think Dante Polvera could be an interesting X factor in how they choose to defend. Timo Baumgartel as that last defender, central center back, obvious in what his role is going to be to prevent anybody from getting in behind the lines, but who Polvera actually shadows or goes after, and how much he kind of shades Peter Musa as well because of that height comparison. I think that's going to be interesting to see. Wing backs. So the wing back battle between St. Louis and Dallas. We've talked about St. Louis's desire to leverage their possession and their movement through their wingers, trying to get Santos and Valum involved in the buildup and progress the ball out wide and then engage the ball into the central areas. So whether it's a cross or trying to get that second or third pass, that's how St. Louis moves. Dallas's wide players, their wing backs, are probably going to be Johansson and Kamungo, and they are pretty good in their attack as well. The battle for me to watch is going to be Kamungo against Santos. Johansson against Santos. The right side against the left side. Right side for Dallas, left side against St. Louis. So Santos will have his hands full, I feel, defensively if he starts. And this is kind of the reason why I think Valum and Totland might be worth considering, like Stu was saying earlier. And then the last piece of it is just St. Louis overcoming this home field advantage that Dallas has had for various reasons. It's an intangible aspect of this. The players, the structure, the system for St. Louis is totally different against this year compared to previous years. But at the same time, that elephant is on our backs. We have those last 3 years where we just have not been able to beat Dallas at Toyota Stadium, and not just not beat them, but not score against them. I don't think the players are going to have this on their minds primarily, but it is something that the fan base is just going to be clamoring for. Score a goal, finally end this. We talk about our struggles against LAFC and Seattle all the time, and now we're talking about against San Diego, but Dallas is a sneaky one in that we've been so ineffective for various reasons, and I try to write them off between that split game in 2023, 2 weeks before Carnell was fired in 2024, a 2025 team that was in the dead of heat, and Critchley was still trying to turn them around. And they just seemed like they didn't have an answer. They were aggressive in that way. It was the old St. Louis City style. So if there's anything else that you look to besides this isn't a game in June or July, it's the fact that St. Louis's style has shifted. And so you might look to say Dallas's style has remained the same. Their system is built on a lower block and a counterattack. St. Louis has not been able to have success at Toyota based on those previous systems and styles of a high press and the same kind of trying to counter, not being good in possession, specifically not wanting the ball. And when Dallas has been successful in forcing us on the ball these past few years, we have failed miserably. And so this St. Louis team that is actually starting to get better with the ball, starting to improve on in our possession and our first touches, maybe that's the recipe for success. Is Dallas wants to cede possession? Okay, let's take that next step in our ability to possess the ball and then show that we can get into the final third and finally show we can score. That's the big test. I trust that St. Louis is going to be able to possess the ball better against Dallas than we ever have before, but I still don't have that trust that we have a final third option to be able to finish. It's just, we haven't seen anything that lets us see that. So I want to, before I go over to City 2 to round out this episode, I want to go into the chat real quick. So Aaron Leak, Edelman needs to stay home if Durkin is going to Rome. Defensively, this is almost a requirement. I don't know that I'm trusting our wing backs to stay deep. I think they need to stay a little deeper. Maybe that'll change up how our attack looks even and change the number of crosses that we try to get through. It could have a cascade effect, but at the very least, we're away. We can't allow Dallas to get the first goal, and we need that extra body deeper. We need one of our central midfielders to stay on their game and not get too outside of themselves. So if it's Edelman and it's Durkin, they're used to each other. I expect that from Edelman. Durkin missed slide tackles in midfield, make me cringe. I cringe every time Timo or Polvera lunge for the ball. That's part of the transition too, honestly. When the lunging for the ball is trying to close that gap and close that space as quickly as possible and trying to prevent them from getting in around and in behind. Polvera has missed more often times than not. And I feel like he's learning from this as well. I talked to him midweek. If you listen to the Notebook episode of Flyover, you heard my interview with Dante Polvera. And I think a lot of what he described may feed into why you've seen them lunge for the ball. And that's if St. Louis's defense gets too spread out. There's too much space that allows an attacking, whether it's a midfielder or a forward, space to dribble and carry the ball. If you look back on it, so the San Diego, NYCFC, Dante Pulvera has been stepping up because there's so much space allowed in front of him. Whether it's the midfielders or the wingers that have ceded all that space, he's making a call in the moment to not allow all that space and not allow the attacker to dictate where he's going with the ball, to play a legitimate defense on your heels. Pulvera is choosing in these moments not to do that. And I do appreciate that, because the alternative is probably he gets worked. He's going back, he's fading back, and you allow the attacker to make whatever move he feels he needs to create the space, and you're giving him more space. So maybe he even takes a shot from those points. The quality needs to improve. And when Pulvera steps up, I would love if he would actually make contact more and actually prevent the attacker from, moving closer to goal with the ball. But the alternative is potentially even worse. And I think that's where I come of, I don't want to see him lunge, but the problem doesn't start with Pulvera and Timo in those ways. The problem starts higher up the field, in other areas of the press, in creating that space in the midfield to allow the defense to reach Pulvera and Baumgartel and Orozco in those moments. So that to me, that's my opinion on where we need to fix the problem. It's higher up. And it usually is higher up when something like that happens against a defense in transition. Aaron Lee comments, Cordova makes me cringe. Yeah, I've given my thoughts on Cordova. I don't want to be too hard in general just because we haven't seen much of him. But the problem with that is we've heard about his performance in the past. We've seen his performances in the past, and it's not better. It's not like he has a good quality body of work behind him that gives us thoughts of saying, oh, well, Cordova just needs time. He just needs a few more minutes in a match. He needs 2, 3, 4, 5 starts. He'll get it. He's taken a long time in getting ready to go this season in general after arriving. And I think the body of work before hasn't bought him any free time for us to give him the benefit of the doubt. That's my problem with him. All right, let's go into City 2 a little bit. Let's finish this episode with City 2. Talked earlier about the players, talked earlier about City playing down. St. Louis City 2 plays this Friday, April 10th at Energizer Park against Colorado Rapids 2 at 7 p.m. The broadcast is available on OneFootball and MLSNextPro.com. OneFootball is ONE Football is an app that you can download, and they have MLS Next Pro, among other things. That's where I've usually been watching City 2, watched on my phone, cast it to the TV, those kinds of things. MLSNextPro.com also a viable option, but they're not on Apple anymore. And I've gotten asked that a couple times this year. So there you go. Not on Apple. City 2 is crushing it. City 2 is off to their best start potentially in their history. And that's saying something for a good City 2 side. They have 4 wins, no losses, 1 draw. And one of those is a shootout win. 14 goals scored, 4 goals against, a plus 10 goal differential. And their only shootout win came at home. So they're 2-0-1 at home when it comes to that draw with the shootout win where you get an extra point. Thank you, Next Pro rules. City 2 leads the Western Conference with 14 points. Houston Dynamo 2 have 12 points, and the Real Monarchs and Ventura County have 10 behind them. This Colorado Rapids 2 team, well, not exactly cream of the crop. City 2 has 14 points. Colorado Rapids 2 have 1 through 4 games. They have no wins, 3 losses, and a draw. Colorado Rapids 2 come into this match facing what will probably be a new look City 2 team. There have been matches this season where City 2 has been a very consistent looking team, especially in their starting 11, talking about players like Palmer Alt, Patrick McDonald, Cooper Forcellini, Zach Lillington, Jamone Barkley, Jack Wagner, Evan Carlock, Alex Junt. All of them have 4 or 5 games played. But this is also a City 2 team that is definitely seeing a lot of prioritization from the first team. I need to go back and look at the stats because I'm curious how different this is from previous years. But and maybe my perspective is clouded from Yohan Demay's comments from a week or two ago. But this feels like a City 2 team that definitely has a a nucleus of a team. They have a core of Alt, Forcellini, McDonald, Barclay, Lillington, Lynch, and Jack Wagner, with Evan Carlock and Alex Junt from the academy kind of making that next group of players. But this is definitely an organization that seems to be prioritizing first-team players as much or more than previous years. And Yoann Damet said very clearly, and this is probably why I'm reading into it, because we haven't had a manager speak this bluntly about his use of City 2, that Damet wants to use City 2 for his first teamers. Even if it's, he said, even if it's to the detriment of those players signed with City 2, he wants to be seeing minutes for City if they're not getting him from the first team itself. And so far, that has kind of allowed us to see some even more highlighted City 2 players, where we see that Riley Lynch is the only City 2 player to have started 5 games. That's a big deal. So City 2 through 5 games, Riley Lynch, their right wing back, the only player to play all 5 matches. Four games started by Alt, Forcellini, McDonald, Barclay, Lillington, and I take it back. Jack Wagner also has 5 games started. So Wagner and Lynch. Wagner in the midfield, Riley Lynch on the right wing side. Riley Lynch also has 3 assists, tied for the lead with the team with Palmer Alt, and Palmer Alt also leads the team in goals with 4. I had an interesting conversation with someone preseason that said Palmer Alt was the best striker that we've had in camp, and I laughed it off. I still laugh it off, but he's performing at City 2. Palmer Alt, the Indiana University grad, is doing work for City 2 in that striker role, and it's really exciting to see. I always like to see these players succeeding at Next Pro, because it does open up the opportunity for some of them to get short-term loan opportunities later in the season for those who are actually performing at a significantly higher level. The Mackay Joyner obviously broke through that, and Joyner has 3 goals scored with that beautiful game that he had, even though he's only played 2 games and started 2. So we're still seeing some usage from Mackay Joyner in that role as well. City 2 is probably going to see a mix on Friday night of the City players with City 2. I would still look for most of the City 2 players to start. We only named a handful of City players who will probably play down. Even if we're talking optimistically, we're looking at Mbake, Kyle Hebert, Falou Fall. That could be 3 center backs, Leuven, Ostrak, and maybe an attacker in Songbin or possibly Mackay Joyner. So you're talking maybe 6 or 7. I doubt Ben Lunt stays back. So I would assume that it's going to be Lucas McPartlin. Sorry, I'll brain fart on Lucas McPartlin as the goalkeeper, our favorite keeper who likes to roam and collect the ball. So City 2, Friday night, Edu Leuven's going to be the highlight. We know that, but tons of other stars who are really separating themselves and putting themselves in golden boot conversations for MLS Next Pro. City 2 looks to continue their unbeaten streak as they go for their 5th win in 6 games against a downtrodden Colorado Rapids 2 team. So go out to Energizer Park, enjoy the game, enjoy the weekend. Hopefully it's good weather for that match. And regardless of the weather, it's an away game in Dallas. We talked about the weather forecast there. It should be an okay game. With that said, I'm going to step aside. Oh, one last question. What about Colin Welsh? Colin Welsh would be also a good starter. I don't have anything against Colin Welsh. Lucas McPartlin is one of those exciting keepers from the academy. I like Colin Welsh, and there's no reason not to like Colin Welsh. If he starts, great. He's quality. I would love to see it. Lucas McPartlin is that player who you see a few times, both in training camp and in a few matches in the regular season, and you think, wow, that kid's fun to watch. That to me is Lucas McPartlin. So I'm excited to see him or Colin Welsh. I don't think the goalkeeper is going to be a game-changing thing for St. Louis. We play so well in front of the keeper with our back line, led by Zach Lillington. Kyle Hebert's played a few matches. The Falls have played some matches. It's just been a quality showing from City from front to back. So I'm excited to see more. And with that, I will say farewell. My name is Matt Baker. Thank you so much for joining us on Flyover Footy, for joining Phil, Stu, and myself. I will be off duty for the next couple of episodes for Flyover Footy. I will be on vacation, and so Phil will be stepping in to do a Fallout this weekend with Santi. Hopefully it's a winning Fallout. And then Phil will also be back to host later on this week to do a U.S. Open Cup special show. So midweek match, U.S. Open Cup. We've got a big couple of episodes coming up on Flyover Footy. Sunday or Monday, depending on when Phil and Santi can get together. They will be recapping FC Dallas and previewing FC Tulsa. And then after the FC Tulsa match, there will obviously be the fallout from Tulsa and the preview of, I have mentioned this 3 times this week, and I keep forgetting to confirm. I'm pretty sure it's Seattle next week. I'm excited to hear what they have to say. It is Seattle. Thank goodness I've said it correctly for this entire week. Excited to listen to them. I will be back for the fallout to Seattle and maybe look ahead beyond that. But definitely back for the fallout of Seattle in a couple weeks. So appreciate you all joining me. Toss any questions you have my way on social media. I'll hand them off to Phil and Santi. I look forward to seeing what they have to say. And I look forward to a City win. City 2 winning against Colorado Rapids 2. City winning against FC Dallas. That would make for a heck of an exciting weekend and a start to April. Thank you again for joining me on Flyover Footy. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you later.